January 2019 began like any other quiet weekend for millions of American men. They woke up to the ordinary rhythm of life, coffee brewing, kids running around, the glow of a smartphone lighting up a still sleepy face. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Brands felt familiar, routines felt predictable, and there was no warning sign that anything monumental was about to break. But before the weekend ended, a single corporate decision would ignite one of the fastest and fiercest consumer revolts the modern internet had ever recorded. The spark wasn't a product recall, a safety scandal, or a political endorsement. It was an advertisement. Just one ad. Yet within hours, social media was swamped with outrage. Men uploaded videos smashing razors in sinks, tossing shaving cream into garbage cans, and declaring they were done. Finished, with a brand they'd trusted for years, in many cases since they were teenagers. The tone wasn't disappointment. It wasn't annoyance. It was betrayal. Pure betrayal. By Sunday afternoon, boycott campaigns spread across Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter with a speed that stunned marketing analysts. By Monday morning, executives at Gillette watched dashboards of real-time analytics collapse into a sea of red arrows. They weren't witnessing a PR issue. They were watching the unraveling of a century-old relationship with American men. It felt unreal, like a nightmare playing out on screens they couldn't look away from. Newsrooms scrambled to quantify the carnage, but the numbers changed faster than they could report them. Financial analysts couldn't model the downturn because every hour brought a new wave of backlash. No one had ever seen a company with this much brand equity, this much generational trust, lose control so completely, so instantly. This wasn't a normal marketing misfire. This was a corporate implosion. To understand how Gillette, one of the most iconic companies in American history, detonated its own reputation, you need to go back to the beginning. Back to when the brand wasn't just selling razors, but shaping the daily lives and identities of millions of men. At the dawn of the 20th century, shaving was a dangerous, time-consuming ritual. Straight razors required skill, maintenance, and a steady hand. One slip could ruin your morning, and sometimes your face. King Kemp Gillette changed everything. In 1901, he created the disposable blade safety razor, a simple idea that turned grooming into a quick, safe, repeatable routine. It revolutionized the male bathroom forever. The impact was immediate. Men embraced disposable blades in staggering numbers. Shaving became accessible, fast, and consistent. Gillette wasn't just selling a tool, they were selling a new lifestyle. They captured a daily ritual, a moment of self-care, a private act of discipline. Every bathroom across America became a silent advertisement for the brand. And something interesting happened over the next several decades. Gillette became part of the emotional fabric of American masculinity. Fathers taught their sons to shave using Gillette razors. That first shave, a nervous hand holding a blade for the first time, became a rite of passage. This connection wasn't created by marketing. It was created by life, by family, by tradition. Gillette simply became the symbol attached to it. By the 1950s, the brand's dominance stretched across continents. Europe, Asia, Latin America, wherever men shaved, Gillette was there. Their advertising strategy became legendary. They didn't just buy commercials, they bought moments. The biggest boxing matches, the World Series, the Super Bowl, Gillette was embedded into the very events that defined manhood for generations. Their ads didn't feel like propaganda, they felt like celebrations. Their products evolved continuously. In 1971 came the Track 2, the first twin-blade razor. In 1977, the Outrage with its pivoting head. In 1989, the Sensor, a revolutionary leap in comfort and precision. Every few years, Gillette introduced something new, something better, something that made men feel like upgrading wasn't indulgent. It was natural. And then came the moment that cemented Gillette's identity for the next 3 decades. During the 1989 Super Bowl, the slogan debuted, "The best a man can get." It wasn't catchy. It was defining. It captured a feeling men had but didn't articulate. It positioned shaving as a reflection of character, of striving, of being better. Suddenly, grooming wasn't just physical, it was symbolic. The phrase became part of American culture. It echoed through sports broadcasts and locker rooms. It showed up in TV shows, movies, and comedy sketches. It was part of the male psyche. And what made it powerful was that men believed it. They felt that using Gillette said something about who they were. Loyalty wasn't built from coupons or discounts. It was built from identity, aspiration, inherited ritual. So when Procter & Gamble bought Gillette in 2005 for $57 billion, analysts called it a masterpiece acquisition. Gillette was pulling in over $6 billion a year. More importantly, it held more than 70% of the premium razor market, a level of dominance rarely seen in modern consumer goods. Competitors had tried everything to break Gillette's hold. Nothing worked. The emotional chains were too strong. But in 2018, as cultural tides shifted, Gillette's leadership decided the brand needed to evolve. The Me Too movement dominated headlines. Corporations, terrified of being labeled tone-deaf, began injecting activism into their marketing. Executives believed that to stay relevant, Gillette had to take a stand. They saw an opportunity to modernize masculinity. So they made a decision that would set the fuse: reimagine the slogan. To do that, they hired director Kim Gehrig, known for feminist advertising campaigns that challenged traditional gender norms. Her creative style wasn't subtle. It was confrontational, intense, ideological. Gillette didn't stumble into controversy. They hired it. Her brief wasn't to refine Gillette's message. It was to transform it. And here's where the disconnect began. No men were included in the creative process. No longtime customers were interviewed. No one asked how the brand's core audience might react. Internally, masculinity wasn't seen as something to understand. It was seen as something to fix. The creative concept was built on the idea that masculine culture was broken, and Gillette would be the brand to tell men how to repair it. The campaign was designed with missionary zeal. It wasn't just a commercial. It was a cultural statement. And on January 13, 2019, Gillette released it to the world. The reaction was volcanic. Within the first hour, the comment section spiraled into chaos. Men wrote that they felt blindsided. The ad portrayed them not as customers, not as individuals, but as a collective problem that needed correcting. Scenes of bullying, harassment, and predatory behavior were framed as everyday male behavior. And for millions of men watching, it felt like an accusation. By noon, tens of thousands of dislikes. By evening, hundreds of thousands. By the next morning, the ratio was so brutal that YouTube's algorithm began burying the ad and promoting negative response videos instead. Influencers, commentators, comedians, even neutral consumers piled on. Boycott campaigns spread across countries. The story hit international news. It wasn't just an ad anymore. It was a cultural flashpoint. Now came the part you asked to expand: the financial collapse. Retailers reported immediate declines in Gillette purchases. Shelves stayed full not for days, but for weeks, something large chains hadn't seen in decades. In several regions, inventory managers started manually reducing their automatic reorder points because stock simply wasn't moving. Internal emails began circulating among store managers asking if something was wrong with Gillette's distribution system, only to realize customers were choosing competitors instead. At Walmart, one of Gillette's biggest retail partners, entire razor aisles became still life displays. Customers walked past without hesitation. Some stores reported that even the discounted multi-packs, the ones that always sold during pay week, stalled completely. Target saw a rise in product returns, the kind that usually only happened during massive recalls or quality failures. But this time, customers weren't returning defective razors. They were returning brand loyalty. Subscription competitors saw a gold rush. Harry's reported an unusual spike not just in new buyers but in long-term subscription conversions, meaning Gillette customers weren't sampling alternatives, they were committing to them. Dollar Shave Club saw an influx of sign-ups so large that internal teams joked the Gillette ad was the best marketing they'd ever had. Even Schick, normally an afterthought in the razor wars, experienced its strongest quarterly growth in recent memory. The financial analyst who attempted to model the fallout struggled because the pattern didn't resemble a typical PR setback. Usually, when a brand suffers a controversy, sales dip briefly, stabilize, and rebound. But Gillette's downturn didn't behave like a temporary drop. It behaved like a rerouting of customer loyalty. People who left had no intention of coming back. Independent analysis estimated approximately $350 million in revenue vanished in half a year. But that number only captured the front-facing damage. Internally, P&G saw the deeper wounds. Quarterly reports showed the grooming division shrinking steadily through 2019. Gillette's market share, once considered unshakable, finally cracked. Profit margins tightened. Advertising ROI plummeted. Even global markets, not just American consumers, showed similar patterns of erosion. Factories began reducing output. Lines that once ran near capacity were suddenly operating at reduced hours. Suppliers who had long-term standing contracts with Gillette started receiving revised forecasts with lower volume expectations. In logistics, trucking schedules were cut, warehouses adjusted storage layouts, and automated systems flagged unexpected stagnation in movement of specific SKUs. It wasn't just sales declining, it was the entire supply chain recalibrating to a new, lower normal. Retail partners grew uneasy. Some requested joint marketing initiatives to help revive foot traffic to Gillette shelves. Others quietly shifted shelf placement, giving more visibility to emerging competitors whose products were actually moving. For the first time in decades, Gillette was losing the shelf battle. And once a brand starts losing its physical real estate in stores, the psychological dominance it once enjoyed begins to fade too. Internally, executives tried to frame the downturn as a temporary shock. But the data didn't support that optimism. The drop wasn't simply a reaction, it was a reallocation. Customers had broken the habit loop, something brands consider the most dangerous outcome possible. And then came the moment the business world will never forget. When questioned about the catastrophic financial impact, including an $8 billion write-down, P&G's global grooming president, Gary Coombe, publicly stated the losses were worth it. The comment reverberated through the corporate world like an explosion. Analysts couldn't believe what they heard. Investors were stunned. Brand managers across industries circulated the clip internally as an example of what not to do. Coombe's message wasn't defensive, it wasn't apologetic. He doubled down, insisting the direction was intentional and that alienating longtime customers was an acceptable price to pay for aligning with the company's values. He believed the brand needed to move toward younger, more socially progressive consumers, even though that demographic historically spends less on premium razors and is less brand loyal overall. But the most stunning part wasn't the comment. It was that P&G leadership backed him. This wasn't an accident, it was policy. The company genuinely believed it could rebuild a century-old brand by discarding much of the audience that built it. Competitors couldn't have scripted a better scenario. As Gillette alienated loyal customers, rivals positioned themselves as reliable, apolitical, customer-focused alternatives. They didn't need to spend billions on marketing. Gillette had done the hard work for them. Across the business world, companies studied the collapse with a mix of horror and fascination. Internal documents leaked from firms across multiple sectors referenced the Gillette effect, warning teams not to confuse social messaging with brand strategy. Marketing departments grew more cautious. Executives became more skeptical of campaigns that risked alienating the core audience. Gillette's downfall became a business school case study almost overnight. Gillette didn't just lose revenue, they lost something far more valuable: trust. And trust, once broken, doesn't return easily. It had taken generations to build the bond between Gillette and American men. One weekend shattered it. So what actually happened here? Did Gillette misjudge the cultural climate? Did they assume criticism equaled progress? Or did they simply forget that a brand's power comes from the customers who use it, not the journalists who write about it? Tell us what you think in the comments, because one thing is certain. When it comes to corporate miscalculations, Gillette set a new standard. If you enjoyed this breakdown of one of the biggest self-inflicted brand disasters in modern history, hit that like button and subscribe for more shocking stories of billion-dollar empires falling apart. And if you think this one was bad, wait until you see the next company that destroyed itself with one decision. It's even more unbelievable.